Okay, we want to talk about directors. So we have a scene open and we're going to be working specifically within the stage. Now, to create an animation within Vizrt T5, there must be at least one director within the stage. And anytime you create an animation, it will automatically create a director for you. However, you can create your own director simply by coming down into the stage, and within our tree and within our left column here, there is a D button. And we could click that just like that, or you can click on it and drag it down. And when you can see, when we clicked on it, it just added a default director, and then we added a new one and it renamed it director. If we wanted to delete a director, we can just drag that to the trash can. Now, as I mentioned, anytime you create an animation within a stage or your scene, it will create a director. So as I add 2 keyframes here, you can see that it created an animation and it automatically created a default director named default. Now, a director helps us separate out animations or organize our animations so that we can play them out when need be at different times. A director can hold as many items as required, but sometimes it's essential to group different animations and items in separate directors. So for an example, why you would use directors or have multiple directors is that if we came into our cube and let's add another animation here, like a rotation, and it adds 2 keyframes here. So I'll click on our second keyframe and I'll just come in and add a rotation here. Now I also want to loop this, so I'm going to click on my line between the animations and come into my loop setting and just turn on the infinity setting here. Before I do that, I want to change my spline on the Y here to linear. So I'm going to select my Y spline and come up into my options here and say linear left and right, and I'm going to do that for my first keyframe as well. And what that's going to allow us to do is basically there's not going to be any ease in on that animation. It's just going to be one continuous loop here. So if I hit play, you can see that our cube just continuously spins here. Now I want to separate out this animation, so I'm going to add another director. And this is what you can use directors for. So I'm going to rename this one. And to rename a director, you just need to right click on it and it will give you the option to rename it. I'm going to call this one rotation, and I'm going to slide my rotation animation into that director. Now we have 2 directors. And I could come over to my director window here, and since I have 2 directors, we could highlight which director we want to play. We hit play, it'll just play the rotation. I select default and hit play. It's just going to play the position. So that's what directors do. It helps you separate out different animations. Directors are always shown within the stage as a grayish blue color. Besides the directors, you also have actors, and the actors here are essentially the same thing that's within your scene tree and correspond to the naming or the container within the scene tree. Then it's also going to show you the channel, what particular channel is animating on that actor. And all of that is contained within a director. To move a director, all you need to do is click on your director within the stage here and click and drag it. It will highlight it orange and you can just move it left or right. Or when you highlight your director, you also have options over here within the right. There's also what's called an offset, which will move it to the right as well. So it's another option to start your director at a different time other than just dragging it this way. At any time you can speed up a director or slow it down by clicking and dragging it. So if you wanted to slow down the animation, you could just drag the whole animation out by the director. If it's the only animation within the director, you can also grab that keyframe and it's going to stretch that director left or right. Now you can also hold down T and it creates a little green marker there for the start point, and then you can click again by holding down T and it creates a green marker there. And once you have your green handles, you can click on that and stretch it as well right between a particular point. So if you only wanted it to stretch right in the middle here, you could just use these green handles and you're only spreading it out within the middle, unaffecting the edges here. Now anytime events can be added to a director, and if you highlight a director, you're going to get this button active up here. And you can click on that button and it will add a stop. And then we have our different options over here. If you want to know what they are, you can check out the Events Director video. At any time you want to get rid of that stop point or tag, you can just click on that and it deletes it. Now when we click on a director, we get our options over here in the lower right. First, we can also rename the director this way too. If we wanted to rename it to a new name, you have two ways to do that. You highlight the director and you can type it in within this name, or you can right click right on the director and it gives you the option to rename it. As we mentioned, there is an offset, so you can slide that director to have it start wherever you want, and you can also adjust the length within here, which is the same as grabbing the handle and doing it that way. Adjust the timeline is the red bar, so again you can either grab the timeline within the stage editor here or adjust it this way. We also have options for a reverse, an auto start, or use system time. So we could set how we want this director to play out. We could have it always play in reverse, or you could have it auto start whenever you open the scene. Now at any time you can drag things into other directors. I can either do it by the actor or channel, and so you can just take that and you can follow your little hierarchy buttons here to let you know that it's going to be dragged into that new director. If you just wanted the actor, which is the container, you can just click on the container and drag that into a director, or you can just click on the channel, which is the actual animation, and separate that out into the director. If you right click on any director, you get some options. You get an option for deleting your keyframes, so whatever channel is animating, you have that option to delete it right there. And you also have the option to add keyframes of certain parameters right within the stage here. So here we have the scene parameters, and we could just click on anything that we needed to add here and it would add keyframes. So we have an option for scene, live, clip, graphics, aux, super channel, and so forth. Now if we wanted to add one, you just click on one, and what that does, first it will give it a different color to help you differentiate it, and it gives it the name and tells you exactly what that is. It adds 2 keyframes here, so you could just come in and click on your keyframes and access the variables there to add any type of animation. Now this is a camera, so if you wanted to switch cameras, it would start at camera 1, and then when it reaches here it would flip to camera 2. If you wanted to copy anything within it, you could hold down Control and just click and drag, and that would copy that actor or channel into the new director. So we held down Control, just click and drag, and that will copy the animation. And if you ever wanted to get rid of your directors or delete them, a couple of ways you could do that. One, you could right click and say delete, and that will delete the entire container. Or 2, you could just drag that up into the trash can as well, and that will get rid of your director. Now be aware that once you add multiple directors is when you need to start to access your director editor window. Now that we have 2 directors, you would need to make sure that either both of them are selected if you wanted them both to play at the same time, or just be aware which one you are playing out when you hit play, because now that you have multiple directors, there's more things to manage within your scene.